Welcome to Inside Asia. This evening, we are going to have a special interview with Kun Thirachai Puwanat Naranuban, Secretary General of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Thailand. Welcome to our program, Kun Thirachai.
Sawasdee krab.
We are going to have the ASEAN Economic Community by the year 2015. We are in this framework. We're going to have free flow of people, free flow of goods and services. We certainly will have more economic integration. But how about the intra-regional financial transactions? How do you see that developing?
Well, we are certainly going to have more of that. Because with more people moving about, more trade of goods and services between the ASEAN countries, there are bound to be more intra-regional financial transactions. But what I want to point out is that, in the old days, these kind of transactions go through the banking channel. And you don't need much development because, banking channel has been established for over 100 years in ASEAN. But for the next phase, it is inevitable that the financial transactions will have to move beyond the banking channel. And that is going to be into the capital market channel. And here, this is where the difficulties lie, because for the capital markets in ASEAN, one has to admit the fact that there are still quite a bit of differences. Differences in terms of perception of reputation, differences in terms of the way business are conducted, differences in terms of rules and regulations. So we still have to do quite a bit of work to make sure that this is smooth.
As a regulator, how do you keep up with this development of the capital market?
Well, we envisage that we want to facilitate investors to be able to invest across borders within ASEAN more easily, and also try to find ways for the people who use the money, the commercial companies, industrial companies that raise capital in ASEAN. This should be done at low cost, competitive with other regions, so that they can go forth and they can conquer the regional markets or the world markets with their goods and services effectively. So in order to do that, the ASEAN securities regulators, of which I'm chairman, which is called the ASEAN Capital Markets Forum, ACMF, we have decided to make a study with the Asian Development Bank, and we propose a roadmap, especially for capital market integration. This roadmap was proposed to the ministers of finance of ASEAN in the year 2009, and it has been accepted. And that roadmap sets out clearly, each year as to who has to do what, every year going up to the year 2015.
So the implementation pace is moving to your satisfaction?
Well, that's the key point. This is why we at the ACMF will still have to monitor, and I, as the chairman, will have to report to the finance minister every year, whether everybody is towing the line, moving according to plan or not. But at least for this year, I think I am going to be able to report to them that the progress has been on track.
Can you spell out the key elements in your strategy for the integration of the capital markets, in the ASEAN? What's the first necessary step, that needs to be done?
Well, the first thing, we must make sure that ASEAN products are good products. This is not talking about the economic side, because that is already given.
So, you mean that right now the products are not good enough?
No, the products at the moment, on the economic side is already good because companies are in growth markets. So, revenue growth, rate of profitability tends to be good. But what we need to make sure is that it is good on the governance side, on the corporate governance, on the way that companies are managed. So we are going to do this exercise. We are going to examine the reports, financial reports, of listed companies, the large ones in each of the ASEAN markets.
In this regard, you need close cooperation from the private sector.
Yes, indeed. What we plan to do is we plan to examine these reports and then do a ranking.
I see.
This will be called corporate governance report ranking, but instead of ranking it only for Thailand or only for Malaysia, we are going to rank it across ASEAN. So companies will rise or fall according to its own performance and not related entirely to the country itself, right? So that's the first step. But we are also making sure that ASEAN follow the same international standard in terms of accounting and auditing, as well as we are going to try to encourage all the countries to have CG appraisal by the World Bank and all that. So first thing is to make sure we have a good product.
Okay, let me interrupt. Who's going to set the standard? I mean, the share standards that all the companies, listed companies, in the capital markets, will have to follow in terms of the accounting, the legal thing, and also the disclosure. Any panel, to set up, to look after this?
Actually, the best thing, for each particular aspect, of the professional work, there tend to be international organizations that look after the international standards for each of these aspects. So we are going to rely on that, and we are going to push up, the practices in each ASEAN countries to the same high international standard. The idea is to present ASEAN investment as an asset class, and this is going to have to be world class. So we are going to go by the international standards as set by the various bodies.
How do you help, or how do you bring along other capital markets, to the same international standard that you have just mentioned? Because each market has its own stage of development. Say Singapore, I think they have been quite in the advanced stage, and the set is quite somewhere in the middle, whereas Vietnam and Laos, they are coming up. So how do you work together, with these different markets?
Well, this is perhaps the most difficult part. It will be the most challenging part, but that's our aim, because to present ASEAN as an asset class, it means everybody must be up to the same level. And we are not saying the low level, but up to the same high level of standard. So the way to do it is first to identify what standards we want to aspire to. And second, to set a timeline for everybody to move year by year towards that standard. Some countries may already be achieving those standards, but some countries may need 2 or 3 years in order to move there. But what we need to do is to make sure everybody moves along. It's like a chess piece, that all the pieces will have to be moved at the same time, a little bit here and there, to make sure everybody moves along.
In terms of cross-border listings, do you think that the framework that you are aiming for, will facilitate companies to list across countries?
Well, this is certainly our most important aim. We want to make sure that anyone who raises capital in our markets must be able to do so not only at competitive cost, but also conveniently. And that means, if you want to tap money from Thailand and from Malaysia and from Indonesia at the same time, eventually you should be able to use just one set of documents. And instead of having various sets of documents and applying to different authorities, it should be done all at the same time with just one single passport. We're working towards that, and in order to do that, we have to unify the rules that we have among ourselves. We have started with the disclosure rules. We have now set what is called the ASEAN and Plus standards, so that issuance disclosure documents have to observe the same kind of details.
Suppose a company, a listed company, commits fraud, and investors, would like to sue that companies, and that companies happen to be in one of the less developed ASEAN countries, and the investors are from somewhere else. So how physically it is possible, for investors, to try to go through the legal process?
Well, legal challenge is one of the biggest challenges that we have. In fact, there will be 2 types of legal suits. One is criminal, and the other one is civil. On the criminal side, we are going to, urge all the countries, to have the same high standard of securities law that protects investors, that can ensure that when there is a wrongdoing, the authority has the power to go in and prosecute. And we are going to exchange information among each other more readily. The other side, and that is perhaps taking more time, is the commercial dispute between the two parties, between, say, a small shareholders against a listed companies in another country, or one shareholder in one country against another shareholder in another country. Here, the ASEAN Secretariat is going to set up a working group consisted of experts from the judiciary in order to see whether they can set up procedures and methods so that the retail investors can do this at low cost.
Do you think that we in ASEAN need a super securities exchange commission to look after the regional capital market integrations? You, as head of the Securities and Exchange Commission in Thailand, you just have jurisdictions, over the capital market in Thailand. But as we are facing or going through the integration, do you think that, like in Europe, should we have a super agency as the to govern the Securities and Exchange Commission?
Well, if you look at other regions, in the U.S. there is only one entity, and that's the U.S. SEC that covers everything. In Europe, there are still various securities commission of the individual European countries, but they have an organization called CISA that can also intervene and make certain rules. Here in ASEAN, the forum that binds us together is a little bit more loose. It is not yet endorsed in legal terms, and I think it will take time. It will take time, for the cooperation to mature into anything more concrete.
As an investor, say like from Thailand, how does he or she will benefit, from this integration of the capital market in the ASEAN?
The investors would certainly have, a much wider choice than before, of investable securities, a much wider spectrum of risk and returns to choose from. So the opportunity to diversify risk as well as seek special returns from particularly certain types of businesses that may not be available in Thailand. For example, if you want to invest in mining, you need to concentrate on Indonesia. These kind of things will open the field, for the investors much more. But obviously, you will have to prepare yourself. You will have to make sure that you learn more, not only about the economies and the countries of other ASEAN countries, but also the individual companies in those countries also.
So who will protect them? The brokers, the regulators?
Both the brokers, will have to lead them. The brokers themselves, this is why I think, in the long run, the brokers may have to link up across borders to find strategic partners, so that they can offer services to the investors as one, in the same package, and at the same time, we, the regulators, will also have a strong hand.